Greetings from the far-off land of Edogawa. I'm Sai, bringing you another episode of Persona 4 Golden. Coming back to this again. That was terrible. Anyway, I'm gonna explain a little bit of the TV listing since I left that out in the last time. To the left of this fifth channel is all the cutscenes.
Daily Personations.
Just gonna scroll through these all quickly because I can. Anyway. And then to the right of it is the art gallery, which, again, I won't go into a lot of detail. And then the next channel over that one is the select music channels. And then some trailers and such. I'm not even sure if I have all of these. To the left of that one, channel 4 I mean, is the Midnight Trivia Miracle Quiz, which we'll get to after the contents of this column here. Alright, I decided to fade out and actually re-record the entire segment because it wasn't that interesting when I was actually saying anything. Well, besides quoting some things, but whatever.
Mr. Edogawa's TV classroom.
Lesson 1. What are shadows and personas? Hello there, everyone. It's time for Mr. Edogawa's TV classroom. This lecture is for those distinguished enough to tune in. I'm your lecturer, Mr. Edogawa of Gekkan High. Now, excuse me, I'm gonna pronounce things wrong, but that shouldn't worry you too much, should it? Although you might be surprised that my day job is a school nurse. Usually, the students actually ask me about their health. Sometimes, I get questions like this. When do you get questions like that? Mr. Edogawa, what are personas and shadows? Apparently, I have them inside me. Again, who asked you these questions? It was quite a shock to learn that there are students that diligent out there. After all, not many children would come to me asking about personas and shadows from Dragon Physology. It was due to such requests that I decided to start the show, Mr. Edogawa's TV classroom. Was that like one request? This lecture will cover Dragon Physology, so you, too, can learn about personas and shadows. And much more besides. I call it, everyone loves the Dragon Physology. I think I'm saying that wrong, but who cares? Let us study the science of the human mind that Dr. Jung built. Today's lesson, in the first installment, is what are shadows and personas? Alright, let's get started. I'm not saying that next line, because it'd be impossible for me to do so. Moving on. Now, I mentioned this already, but persona and shadow are terms used in the jargon. These are terms used to describe the workings of the human mind. But what exactly are personas and shadows? According to Jung, they are other yous inside yourself. Let's start with the persona. It's the other you that comes out when you interact with others. Think about it. When you talk to somebody, is that the real you? Most likely. Or was it the you that the person you were talking to was expecting? Or the you want people to see? Either of those yous are a persona. Personas are like masks. They connect you to the outside world by acting as the medium through which you present yourself. That sounds like a helpful other you, doesn't it? Personas are there when you need them. With shadows up. They're the other you that you reject from yourself. A good way to think about them is the you that you don't want to be or don't think yourself as. Shadows are just that. Shadows, they are the side of you that you keep locked away in your mind as evil. Ah, makes sense. Sounds like a scary other you, eh? It appears that you need to handle the shadows with care. Now, personas and shadows are both other yous that you aren't usually aware of. So then, why aren't you aware of them? It's because they lurk deep inside your mind, in your unconsciousness. The unconscious is the source of personas and shadows, and the foundation of the Jigen. It's important to understand, so let's take a closer look at this unconsciousness. The term was originally derived from psychology. It may be hard for you to imagine since the word is now used in everyday conversation. Since when? There's a domain in all our minds that we are typically unaware of. This is known as the unconsciousness. And the unconsciousness is the source of the mind's activity. So you, and yes, even you, all have an unconsciousness deep within your mind, separate from the conscious mind you are aware of. The unconsciousness is said to be much larger part of the conscious mind, too, like the part of an iceberg that's underwater. Interesting. You could even say that the Jigen began by elucidating this vast consciousness. Or unconsciousness, sorry. Are you even listening? Are you still conscious? I better not see you sleeping in my class. Anyway, the unconsciousness, hidden deep inside your mind, it is in this realm that you cannot explore the power that change your inner self lies. This power are the same as the other yous inside your mind, the personas and shadows that I was just talking about. The other yous live in the unconscious, lying in wait for the chance to make it out of the conscious mind. Who are they really? And how should you go about handling them? These are concepts I'll be introducing to you, so be sure to tune in. So far, we covered the existence of the unconscious inside your mind, as well as the other yous, known as personas, and shadows, which live there. Now, let me add one thing to that, an important secret about the unconsciousness. This gets to the heart of the truth about your mind, the truth about the world. The unconscious within your mind is actually not just yours. Human minds are all connecting, transcending space and time. In other words, man's unconsciousness is shared. Makes sense, given the context. Did I forget to mention that this show will involve viewer participation every so often? You see a selection on the screen, use the buttons in front of you to make it your choice. Now that I made that explained and destroying the entire fourth wall as we know it, let's get started. Man's unconscious is shared. I knew that! Oh, we have an expert among us. Nah, I don't declare myself an expert, I just exist. These lectures also could be a good way to review, so I hope you'll be watching up the other installments. Now then, is man's unconscious really shared? Have you ever noticed that no matter what the era or location, man tends to have certain sensitivities? Based on thorough, painstaking research, Jung suggests that man's unconscious is indeed shared. If Jung was alive today, he might say something like, the human mind isn't an isolated terminal, it's networked. And that network is known as the collective unconscious. The original German phrase is known as collectivist unword. I really can't pronounce that. In case you were curious, I'm sorry for my lack of speech today. Now, the other yous, personas and shadows. To tell you the truth, they are deeply tied to this collective unconsciousness. I'll explain this term more later, but there are archetypes, images born from the collective unconscious. It's starting to become quite a handful, isn't it? No. Collective unconscious what? Archaic majig? Speak English, you egghead! Yeah, speak English, you egghead. I can hear the screams from your heart. Stop being creepy. By the time my lectures are come to a close, you'll no doubt be saying, that was so collectively unconscious. Oh, damn puns. However, let's review it a little bit, shall we? Use the buttons in front of you to answer. Unfortunately, you viewers are really at home cannot really do this. Are you ready? Alright, I asked the hidden you within your mind. What part of the mind where it dwells is called? The unconscious? Very good. You passed that with ease. I'm pretty sure the other people at home got that as well. So, it's the basic level of these lessons. Let's keep going and deepen our understanding of the mind. Now then, it looks like our time's up. Next time, we'll dig a little deeper into the unconscious we talked about today. That's it for today. Well, that was interesting. Not really. I had to go back and re-record that, because originally my way of actually going through it was kind of lacking. So anyway, let's move on to the next one.
Mr. Edogawa's TV classroom.
Lesson 2, the unconscious. It's just there. Hello there, everyone. It's time for Mr. Edogawa's TV classroom. Everybody loves Jargon, mythology, an invitation to what you and that you didn't know. Today is installment number 2, the unconscious. It's just there. Keep in mind, I'm just gonna go through this entire. These are actually unlocked when you progress through the story of the game. So, do you remember the last lecture? I mean, you're not already glossing over it, are you? Now, let's begin this class. Serious Estar Bezinar. You heard me say Jung this and Jung that. But thinking back on it, I never explained who Jung was, did I? Yeah. My speech patterns are terribly misformed today as well. So this time, I'll give you some biographical details about the lesson, or throughout the lesson, sorry. Charles Jung was born in Switzerland in 1875. By the turn of the century, he had begun his career as a psychiatrist. Become a doctor who counseled people with mental illnesses. Oh, great. Excuse me, I need this drink of water over here. Give me a moment. There, now we can continue this lesson. At the time, psychiatry was still in the very early stages of development. There was one collected method of treatment known at the time. The method was hypnosis. Through the use of hypnosis, Jung and the other fellow doctors were able to treat their patients' mental illnesses. All under hypnosis, the patients displayed sides of themselves that have never been seen, as well as alternate personalities. So where did these hidden sides and the other personalities come from? That became the question of Georgia. What are they hiding, essentially? If man could be aware of all aspects of his mind, there would be nowhere to hide. But as it happened, there was. The conclusion that psychologists came to was that there existed an area of the mind that people were not aware of. That is, of course, the unconscious. The opposite of the consciousness. And that's how doctors like Jung first discovered the existence of the unconscious in those days. I'm sure many of you know, the one who contributed the most to the discovery of the unconscious was Sigmund Freud. Freud could be considered Jung's mentor. But unfortunately, we don't have much time in these lessons to discuss their relationship. The unconscious was discovered by a group of extraordinary men. For now, just remember that fact. Now, let me ask you, when do you think of the unconscious, how do you feel? I don't feel anything. You treat it like air then, something you never really need to pay attention to. Well, perhaps your feelings about the unconscious will change after these lectures. Heh, maybe. If you tell me it's there, I feel vaguely like it is. But in daily life, it's hard to believe because you can't sense it. However, Jung and the others claim that you can detect the unconscious in your daily life, even without hypnosis. One way is through slips, clinically known as parapraxis? Things like a slip of the tongue or forgetting to do things fall into this category. You've been in situations where you accidentally called somebody such as your teacher mommy, right? Unfortunately. But not in that case. But what you meant to say is Miss Seiko. Something else slipped down. The unconscious is closer than you thought. Another way to detect the unconscious is in dreams. That's easy to see now. Maybe. That's probably why most people don't remember their dreams. Typically, one dreams of these things that are not possible to do in the real world. You may have surprised yourself before with dreams of things that you never experienced, haven't you? They were beyond your imagination, weren't they? Something your conscious mind would never have come up with. We'll see about that. Yes, dreams are quite close to the unconscious. Dreams are an important subject of study in the Jigon. We'll go over that in another lecture. As a psychiatrist, Jung considered the unconscious to be a big problem. Why? Because he considered it to be the cause of the mental illness. This is how he saw things. In a healthy mind, the conscious was in control, realigning in the unconsciousness. But for his mentally ill patients, the unconscious broke free of its reins and ran amok. Hearing it that way, you might think that the unconscious is a bad thing. But that's not quite how Jung saw it. An uncontrolled unconscious taking over is a bad thing, yes, but the unconscious itself is not innately bad. What led him to say this, you might ask? Reasons. His observations as a psychiatrist led him to realize that the only cause of mental illness was actually on the conscious side. If you suppress your emotions too tightly or work too hard, or stress yourself out to the limit, your consciousness makes its move. Essentially, the conscious mind becomes overtaxed and unbalanced. The unconscious mind comes out as if to stop it. The unconscious overcompensates for the conscious. Oh man, that's getting to be a tongue twister. The unconscious compensates for the conscious when the latter overextends itself. Seen this way, the unconscious definitely seems like something you want to have. Its role is to balance the mind. Now then, so far we learned to view the mind as divided into conscious and unconscious halves. Next, let's talk about you. The you of your conscious mind is referred to in the Jigon as the ego. This too is now a common term which makes things complicated. But for purposes of this lecture, when I say ego, it'll carry the Jigon meaning. The ego is the center of the conscious and, in most respects, is the mind. But it's only a you in the conscious sense. The domain of the ego does not extend into the unconscious. This will be a key point later on in our studies of the Jigon's physiology. So, let me ask you again. When you think of the unconscious, how do you feel? I still don't feel anything. That answer does make you sound like a big shot, but from what I'm sensing, it seems the lecture is a bit overwhelming for you. That worries me. I'll pick it up what you can, I suppose. Essentially, we are residents of the conscience, so our thinking is biased towards it. We take the conceited view that we are the masters of our own minds, when in truth, the mind is nothing but a tiny consciousness working on the support of the unconscious massive energies. If you forget that, I'm sure you see now. Well then, our time is up. Next time, I'll cover the amazing disposition of the mind, as advocated by Jung. So ends today's lessons. And this TV program. So tune in again for more.